Hello and welcome to the HVAC Diaries. Today is Saturday, September 2nd, and this is my weekly HVAC vlog, brought to you and sponsored by New Calgon. Once again, you will see all of the New Calgon products I used this week. Things seem to happen in twos this week. We had 2 plugged condensate drains, 2 chiller colonoscopies, I'll tell you all about those. We had 2 fan motors, 1 ice machine. Anyway, let's get on with it. The first story I'll start with is one of the fan motors that we replaced. So we were called to our multi-tenanted building in North Vancouver. North Vancouver is separated from the rest of Vancouver by 2 bridges. It's kind of on its own, and there's 2 ways to get in or out, and those are notoriously plugged with traffic. So it generally takes a longer time to get to North Van and to get off North Van. So the call was for this office that we work at. They're like, we just changed the batteries in the thermostat, but now the thermostat seems to be locked and set at 24 degrees Celsius. They're like, it's too warm in here, please can you come and help? So first of all, we're like, eye roll, like we have to go all the way to North Vancouver to reprogram a thermostat? Of course, yes, we'll be there. So we go there, and sure enough, the thermostat is locked, and we use our special code, which is 1234, and we get into the thermostat and we change the settings. And so the air conditioner kicks on, and we can hear it from the office we're in. It's struggling, something's not right. So we go into the roof and we find the blower motor it's dead.
Yeah, the motor gone.
So we called the supplier. The supplier's got a motor, perfect. So my dad left me to take out the old motor while he goes and grabs the new one. Then by the time he's back, we'll just put the new one in and we're done. Saves a bit of time that way. So he left me, and I was pretty chuffed about that. Started getting everything done. You guys, I totally overthunk that fan motor replacement. And I realized what I did later on. I got them confused. To take out the condenser fan motor, you've got to take out the wires from the control board. So that's where I went wrong. For a blower motor, the wires usually go in at the motor. Does that make sense? So when you're changing a condenser fan motor, you replace the wires at the control board. When you replace a blower motor, you replace the wires at the actual motor. Anyway, I got all crazy, went in there, tried to start taking out the wires. I promise I'm not doing this just for fun. My butt is actually wet. I'm sitting on a puddle. But I have to get to this. These 3 here have to go through this tiny little hole. This fitting. Can't see. There it is. I gotta take that off. I'm actually really lucky that I had trouble with that little connection thing and I couldn't get the wires through. If I had pulled those wires through, you guys, it would have been impossible to get them back in. It would have been such a nightmare. I didn't have to undo those wires at all. What a waste of time and energy. Cool. Anyway, I got the thing all back together before my dad got back. He was none the wiser, except I did tell him. But anyway, so crisis averted. However, you guys, when he came back, he opened up the motor, the box, and there was the wrong motor inside. He actually brought the condenser fan motor and not the blower motor. The one I was trying to change. Anyway, so that's really unfortunate. Usually, rule of thumb is to always check the motor before you leave the supplier. Just open up the box, take a look at it, make sure it is the exact same motor that you're looking for, because even sometimes they'll give you the right box and a different motor will be in the box. It's human error, it just happens. So always double check, save yourself the time. But because my dad left me on the roof, he was in such a hurry to get back to me that he didn't bother checking. And so we opened up the box on the roof and sure enough, it was the wrong motor, which sucked because we were on the North Shore. And yeah, so that just means that we had to skip a couple of other jobs that day. We had to postpone them because we were just stuck driving back and forth from the supplier trying to get this motor done. Anyway, we finally got her done. Dad was not happy. The other fan motor was this little tube axial fan motor, a little square one. We actually had another job scheduled for that morning, but we had to put this fan in real quick. And I was like, "It's fine, Dad. We'll just quickly go and put it in, and then we'll be off onto our job. Like, it'll be fine." Except, in order to access the fan in this prep cooler, we literally had to take the thing apart.
Let's see if I can get it.
Like, we had the whole thing taken apart. It took us way longer than we expected just to access this stupid little fan.
Okay. Let's see.
All right.
And so we're like, taking this thing apart. My dad, as he's pulling these screws out, there's 3 particular screws in these places. And he's like, "We're gonna get these screws out." He's like, "I have no idea how we're gonna put them back in." He's like, "I can't see underneath, can't line them up." So I had to climb inside. Luckily, I'm small. I climbed inside the cooler, crouched down, lined up the screws, got those in, climbed back out, and then reassembled the whole unit. But way more than we bargained for.
Come on, get in there.
All right, so 2 chiller colonoscopies. And I only say that because of the color of the water that came out of them. Oh, so gross. I don't know what's in there. It must be rust. Anyway, so the first one was at a cardboard factory. Actually, we were there last week, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, last week was the float switch. So that's when we discovered how gross the water was. It was very fouled. So we went back there this week and flushed that system. So we filled it with water, dumped the water, filled it with water, dumped the water just a few times to see if we could get most of that brown out. And we did, although the water ended up to be more like a clear brown. Then once we were sort of satisfied with the condition of the water, then we added our glycol. We put 10 gallons of glycol in that system, and it still wasn't quite enough. It's there, but it's not quite enough. What I learned this week with that glycol is it's not used as an antifreeze. It's actually used as a bioinhibitor, which obviously is not doing its job. But the thing is, at those places, they keep topping it up with fresh water. There's got to be a leak somewhere. And so they keep topping it up with fresh water and diluting all the glycol. So that's not ideal. The second chiller we did was for a printing company. They've got a much smaller chiller. When they called us, they were like, we heard a loud bang and we saw either steam or smoke coming from the unit. And so we're like, okay, so we checked the system out. We're like, yeah, it's fouled. Again, they've got rusty water in that system. So we take out the water filter, the inline water filter. And first of all, it's quite tricky to take out. You literally have to it's round like this size. You have to unscrew it in place. It's full of water, so it just makes a mess everywhere. And then in order to even get it out, you have to sort of you have to push it backwards and how do you say it? Turn it backwards so all of the water tips out onto the ground. And then you can pull it out on its side, and then you can pull it out. So we did that. My dad goes to grab the filter out of it. He's like, that's weird. How does this filter go inside? Does it screw on? We take a look at the instructions. No, you just place it in there. This filter is stuck solid in there.
Yes.
After a bit of investigation, we found that there was so much rusty muddiness in there, it actually cemented the filter in the housing. It was like we had to dig it out. We used whatever long, skinny instrument we could, gouging out this mud. Ridiculous. It took us an hour just to get the filter out of its housing.
Oh my goodness.
Unreal. So we did the same thing there. We flushed it, filled her up, flushed, filled her up, rinsed, filled. Until we were satisfied with the color of the water, which still wasn't ideal, but anyway. So they're gonna run their machine for about a week without any glycol, just plain water, to see if we can scrounge up any more of the gunk inside. Then we're gonna do another flush there. Whole process again. It's very dirty and messy. Then we'll add the proper amount of glycol and hopefully they'll be good to go for a while. We also found they've got this water tank there. It's got a pressure relief, a little pressure relief thing on the top. Completely clogged as well. So we think the steam or the smoke that they saw was that pressure trying its hardest to get through that pressure relief, but it was solidly plugged. We worked at my least favorite place this week. Not afraid to say it. It's a Tim Hortons in downtown Vancouver. Their ice machine, it's got a temperament, I think. About once a year, about every summertime, the thing just freezes over completely. It forms a solid block of ice over the whole thing. Just solid ice. And then it obviously doesn't make any ice. So they call us and they're like, the ice machine's not working. And we open it up and it's like, well, it's chock-a-block full of ice. So because of this week and our busyness, we had to just shut the unit down and we had to come back the next day because there's nothing we can do when it's so icy. And then they kind of freaked us out. They were like, oh yeah, we've been trying to chip away at the ice with a hard thing. And we're like, no, don't do that. Oh my goodness. They're gonna break something else. The best way to get rid of ice is either hot water or a heat gun. Never chip away at it with something. If you're not a professional, like, please don't do that. So we went back the next day. We gave the machine a proper clean, a once over. Everything checks out fine. There's nothing wrong with it mechanically. Refrigerant pressures are good. All of the components are doing what they're supposed to do in the time that they're supposed to do it. It's just that every once in a while it over freezes. My dad's got a couple of theories. I'm not even going to go into them because I'm probably going to confuse myself and you. But anyway, so we dealt with that. And just like any time waiting for that first batch of ice to harvest, this one takes about 35 minutes. Just like sitting there, just waiting for the stuff to come out. And then finally it starts falling out and it's like, angels are singing. Ah. But you guys, while we were there, I am so annoyed by this. The ice machine is right beside their walk-in cooler freezer combination. You walk through the cooler and then you get to the freezer. So while we were there, they had both of the doors to those coolers or walk-ins propped open for at least 30 minutes. So I'm like, well, I'm sure they're moving product in there. They're, maybe getting no, there was no movement. They just had the doors propped open. I think someone forgot them. But then the staff were walking past it all the time and they're just like oblivious to the cooling that's just flowing out of their, oh my goodness, they're wasting money and putting strain on the equipment. Eventually I'm like, can I close this door? They're like, oh yeah, no problem. What? Oh, I get so worked up. Well, you guys, that's all I have for you this week. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of the HVAC Diaries HVAC vlog for my HVAC adventures. Thank you to New Calgon for their amazing, generous sponsorship. I love working with that company. Have a great week, guys. See you next time.